part of our final product, those live cells that we were making that you have to
Right.
line and sequence inside of a module, those were pretty reactive. We were almost was burning down a building every couple of weeks because of those. One of our outbuildings.
Wow.
Because that's where they were going to take them to deconstruct them.
And then if they do catch fire, you have to grab this burning battery and try to get it into water.
Basically, we all got forklift certified, grab the whole entire pallet on a forklift, get it out of the building.
So the
as
plan
fast as you can.
The best plan we have right now is to move a flaming pallet out of the building and into water. That's what we got right now.
Hey, it's better outside than inside.
And welcome, everybody, to another amazing day right here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. I'm being joined today, a whistleblower over at the Ford battery plant reached out to me and said, I want to tell you what's going on over there. Concerns about safety, concerns about just buildings catching fire, concerns about the plan of how they even put out fire. Truly a shocking interview. And exposing interviews, we hear what's going on, what was the safety plans, because what's key to understand about this site, the Ford battery plant out at Blue Oval, is that this was put upon the taxpayers, the state of Kentucky giving them hundreds of millions of dollars, the federal government giving them billions of dollars to build this site, all the buildings out there completely paid for by taxpayer funds, essentially. And there was never any discussion about this manufacturing. What were they going to manufacture? The citizens didn't get to weigh in on it. Turns out, of course, we find out it was a battery plant. And there's never any discussion about what is the dangers of that. Well, we have a part of their emergency response team, whistleblower Thomas Walling, joining us on the show in order to give us that inside a scoop, blowing the whistle on things he's seeing going on over there that are of quite a huge concern as they are progressing over to this transition. Now, of course, he still believes that the plant will rebound, but are some things going on there of concern, things in the past that have gone on over concern, and it certainly leads to part of why the plant failed as a battery plant too as well. I know I was very surprised to hear about flaming pallets on forklifts being dunked into water. It's pretty extreme, toxic gas fumes, all kinds of things, literally mold pillars growing out of the floor in buildings. Absolutely crazy story. So take a listen to it, tune on in. But for those of you listening for the first time, please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're listening on the radio, watching on TV, make sure you follow up on everything here over at, you can go to the andrewshow.com. Once again, that's the andrewshow.com. See all the places where you can listen to, you can watch. And because this interview, I kind of shot it in one piece, so kind of just cut in and cut out. Not going to have a whole lot of intro, outro. So if you want to see it all together, head over to the andrewshow.com. Once again, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. But let's jump down into it. And joining us, we've Thomas joining us. He was a part of the safety response team out at Blue Oval SK. And he reached out to me, said, hey, I used to work over there. I can fill you in on what's going on. I worked there up until here recently. And there's a lot going on the public isn't aware of. And so I thank you, Thomas, for giving us the time. Thank you for doing this and coming on to kind of give us some information. Now, outside looking in, here's what I know about the story. As a taxpayer, I know about it. They had the special session that they called in 2021 that was for, quote unquote, COVID. Though Bashir in debates said that it was for Ford in order to put together this deal that basically gave right around $310 million to Ford to build this plant here in Kentucky. $250 million of it, I believe, cash, forgivable loan, and then $60 million more in free land and training programs through KCTC and a few other things. Additionally, this plant, that Ford received billions from the Biden administration to build this plant. I believe they received right around $4 billion to build 3 plants, 2 of which were here in Kentucky. So essentially, it was all paid for for Ford from the taxpayer. Let me ask you, when did you first hear about the Blue Oval SK plant, and what did you think about initially? What was the initial information you had on it?
I first learned about the Blue Oval plant actually while I was a captain at the Toyota Fire Department in Georgetown. I worked for Toyota for many years. Um, and that led to me actually going down to North Carolina, promoted to their industrial fire chief, and trying to open Toyota's EV battery plant down in Liberty, North Carolina. I learned about it once I come back home, and that's kind of how I was recruited. I was recruited to Blue Oval from Toyota.
And what was your job responsibilities there?
At Blue Oval?
Yes.
Blue Oval, we were part of the safety and emergency response team. That's kind of how they classified us. So when we first got on site, I've actually one of the original hires there, especially for the emergency response team. So I was on site just over 2 years. Some of the first boots on the grounds there, like so early they didn't even know what to do with us. But my job sorry, I stumble over my words sometimes. My job consisted of us doing emergency response throughout the plant and the entire site, not just limiting ourselves to the one building or the outbuildings that were in operation, as well as doing fire safety walks throughout the plant, spotting deficiencies, trying to correct them, going around checking fire extinguishers once a month, all that kind of stuff. Medical response, we even did that.
You know, one thing about these plants coming in, and one of the things before all this money was given to Ford and it was approved kind of secretly. In fact, the vast majority of legislators didn't even know the company they were giving the money to when they approved it. Only a few members did that signed NDAs, and they pretty much told the rest, vote for it or you're going to be in trouble in your next election. So, of course, one of the discussions was not over what are the dangers of this kind of site versus a typical car manufacturing factory. Is there extra dangers to be concerned about? Obviously, we hear a lot about fire with the materials used in batteries. What is the kind of unique things that you think maybe the community should have known about so they could discuss whether or not this is something they even wanted before it was forced upon them that comes along with, electric vehicle battery plants?
Well, I know Glendale pretty much hates us. The little town of Glendale pretty much hates us on the site. I still say us because I'm still have yet to receive my last paycheck for them, so I still consider it us. But I know the little town of Glendale hates us, and I know about 1,600 PO'd Hardin County residents and those in the region that really don't like us right now. So,
why do you think that is?
Because of the shutdown, people lost their jobs. One, Glendale didn't want us there to begin with, I believe, was kind of what I've understood just talking to people in the town and in the area. Because, it's a small little community, just tight-knit little town, and then you come in there. They probably hated when they built the interstate there back in the 60s or 70s or whenever. No little town like that wants to change. I get it. I'm from a little town back in eastern Kentucky. I know how people get, but so there's always been a little conflict there. Not bad. I think they've accepted it in the long run because it was inevitable. There's nothing they can do about it. But the 1,600 people that worked at our site that got laid off, oh yeah, they have a reason to be mad.
Sure, absolutely. What are some of the dangers, though, that come along with electric vehicle battery plants from a safety standpoint of things that you don't see in normal manufacturing?
Well, to answer your original question, kind of the difference, thankfully, I started a lot of my industry with Toyota in Georgetown, so I've worked that automobile aspect of industry. You still have hazards there, just like anything. I've seen big orange clouds over a plant 2 in Georgetown and having to evacuate most of the plant for something. That's industry. That's just, there's hazards anywhere you go. This plant, especially electric vehicle, presents certain challenges because of a lot of the chemicals we use. They have to be stabilized. And that's kind of a problem we ran into recently. We can probably get into this because we had to manufacture so much material, so many cells and modules for these electric vehicles that product line was eventually shut down. That we just had to sit on for months and months and months. And we were literally watching them with thermal cameras, doing fire safety walks of the area with our thermal imagers, watching the temperatures on those things because they could just react.
Hmm. How hard is it to put out? Obviously, we hear about electric vehicles being more difficult to put out when it comes to fire. A fire at a plant like that apparently is storing chemicals that it sounds like can just combust randomly because you're storing them for so long. How hard is it to put out a fire in that kind of situation?
That is a challenge the entire fire service is facing right now. That's not just us problem. That's an entire fire service problems. How do we deal with these things? Because everything's got a battery in it anymore, not just electric vehicles, you know.
Sure. Mild hybrids, a thing most
Yeah,
cars have now these days.
even your cell phone has a battery in it. You keep that in your pocket most of the time. It can happen to your cell phone as well. This is a problem we face in the fire service is how to deal with this. So us being an EV, manufacturer and having to deal with some of this, we're kind of on the forefront of that. And basically the best way we found for our plant is to just get it out of the building and then hopefully get it dunked in water. We had dunk tanks. We had dunk tanks literally set up to where we could just drop a whole pallet of cells or modules into and just let it fizz.
So you have, correct me if I'm wrong. So you've got chemicals being stored that can just spontaneously combust that you got to stay on top of.
Not so much the chemicals, but part of our final product, those live cells that we were making that you have to line in sequence inside of a module. Those were pretty reactive. We were almost was burning down a building every couple of weeks because of those. One of our outbuildings.
Wow.
Because that's where they were going to take them to deconstruct them.
And then if they do catch fire, you have to grab this burning battery and try to get it into water.
Basically, we all got forklift certified, grab the whole entire pallet on a forklift, get it out of the building.
So the
as fast as you can.
The best plan we have right now is to move a flaming pallet out of the building and into water. That's what we got right now.
Hey, it's better outside than inside.
I hear you. It's just,
and into water, yeah. Which even after you dunk it in water presents special hazards because it's going to off gas a hydrofluorogen or hydrogen. Oh gosh, you're testing my hazmat knowledge now. Hydrogen fluoride gas that you don't want to be breathing in. And then you have to let that literally sit there for hours and hours and hours before you can remove it from that dunk tank of water.
So if
don't get me wrong, there are other methods. They're testing fire blankets and stuff like that. But I tell you what, the fire blankets that we have used, big things that you can kind of deploy over the whole pallet or over a whole car, we found that's not helping. It burned right through one of our blankets.
So you've had fires there?
Oh yeah.
So this wasn't.
We don't call them fires. We don't call them fires. Thermal events.
Thermal events. You've had several thermal events out there. So let me ask you this: let's say a building of these stored catch fire, all go up, and you're talking about this gas that's put out. How far out does that gas disperse? Are we talking the entire community? Glendale might have to be evacuated. Are we talking the county? Is it pretty contained?
Now you're talking big. Okay, let's say we had the cell discharge building, which is the one we kept trying to burn down every couple of weeks with their process of trying to decommission these things. Again, there's little risk to the people around from outside of the site. So little Glendale wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, don't get me wrong. If the entire building's on fire, that's just going to put a lot of smoke and crap into the air that people don't need to breathe in. Any fire is going to do that to you. Your neighbor's burning trash. You don't want to be breathing that in. Sure. So it's kind of the same deal. It's just scale.
Right. The scale. Well, and it's what it's burning sounds like it can put off a different gas than just burning trash cans.
But depending on wind conditions, these are the kind of things we have to take into factor when we have, even on the fire scenes, there's an accident on the side of 65 and Glendale has to roll out to it or Hardin County resources go to it. These are things that have to take into consideration, hey, if this is a chemical fire or some kind of nasty thing on fire, what way is our wind blowing? All right, tell people in that area, shelter in place, don't go outside, don't breathe it in, or hey, do we need to evacuate the area? That's just standard procedure for anybody.
Now, here's another question I had, and this was circulating. I saw a lot online. I never talked about it because I couldn't per se confirm it, but maybe you can or not. So they were bringing in this equipment from overseas, and then I heard there was a danger of a mold within the crates. They were basically importing a mold that was pretty hazardous and slowed down construction. Was that going on? Was that accurate?
I think that was a rumor,
Okay.
but I do know where the mold was. I don't think it was in the pallets that they were bringing in the equipment.
So there was a mold problem.
There is a mold problem on that site, but not in the way people think.
Is it a hazardous mold problem? Is it something that
any mold's a hazard?
Right, but it's pretty pervasive?
It's not so much in building 1. The building they've got up and running, it's not a problem in there.
Okay.
Not a problem. Okay. Not like people think, because you have industrial hygienists that come in there and clean that place. Industrial hygienists are still in there working, cleaning that place, even though it's under construction right now, retooling, so there are some dirty parts of the building though, but people don't go to those areas.
Early on in this whole thing, when it was first announced, I was calling out, hey, this is not going to work out. Outside looking in, from my side of things, it was just simple that there was too much government resources being deployed in order to make electric vehicles viable, that if those government resources they're basically trying to manufacture a market that didn't currently exist. And obviously, you can't do that forever. And I personally think we were several decades away from having both the infrastructure in place, the ability to charge, all these things in place where these products would become a mass product. That was just outside looking in. That's what I saw that led me to the conclusion this wasn't going to work out. You're working there on the inside. Was there any indication early on that you saw that kind of indicated to you, I don't know how long this plant's going to last. I don't know what's going to happen out here. Were people pretty confident it was going to do well?
About the time the union started wanting to come in there, about the time we started production in August of last year, is when I started getting nervous. Not for the union. I voted no for the union for separate reasons, but the people, our plant managers and a lot of our leaders started promoting all this. Hey, this is our house and all this, and started giving out free merch and challenge coins. And then they started talking about how Trump's going to repeal the new Green Deal and the EV and everything. And that's when they started talking hush hush about how that's going to screw us.
So they realized that, hey, if the government teat gets cut off, this is going to really hurt us, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah, Well, I saw that with the plant managers. I saw that with our leadership, and again, the infrastructure is just not there for EV right now. Is it inevitable? Probably. I kind of like hydrogen power as well, but I think the market will eventually get there. But our infrastructure is just not set up for it. Even at the little training center place that they built for our site, the little college through ECTCS, was it, or KCTCS?
Yeah.
It took them like 6 months to install those battery chargers there. They just sat there because you have to run the power.
The battery plant, it took them 6 months to figure out how to install the battery chargers. Or to
at the little college, they got ours on site pretty quick, but it was a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Took them a little while there.
And there's not a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. How was, so building 1 got open, obviously there was some requirement for them to get the second plant going within a certain amount of time. Was it pretty clear early on that second plant wasn't going to be built or finalized anytime soon? Did you see construction slow down a lot out there?
Construction came to a complete halt out of building 2. They determined that. No, that was early on.
Oh, early on. Is this before Trump was elected?
This was before we even opened up for production.
They paused building 2.
They paused building 2 because we realized we were going to have problems, and that I think they knew for a while that they were going to that the joint venture was going to break apart. I think they realized that early on. They kept it kind of hush hush.
Why do you think they realized that early on? What do you think the issues were that led to
it? I think they realized early on because the way the progress on the site started going. We had a lot of problems with trying to get building 1 up and going. A lot of this was unproven equipment, again, that they were bringing from overseas, that literally the Koreans brought over with them. So it was all new processes and machinery that had to be tested. And we continually had leaks and problems with the machine, and production was always getting set back and back and back. Of course, we had a few incidences that we as the ERT team had to go in and take care of during that during that time. And, but when they stopped building 2, that's when I kind of figured, oh, okay, we're going to have to bring in some more partners on this. This wasn't enough. And that's when they tried to bring in Nissan, their Project N, as they called it for a while.
Yes. So right now they've said, look, we know electric vehicle batteries, there's not enough demand for it. For me, it was really weird when they said they were going to be, this was months before they announced out of Glendale. They said they were going to be shutting down the Ford plant for a little bit because they're going to set up an electric vehicle line at the Ford plant in Louisville to do like an electric vehicle, like chassis system or something like that. Mm-hmm. I remember this announcement. They're investing $2 billion or something into putting some sort of electric vehicle line there. But in the articles I was reading, it said they would get the batteries from, I believe, Michigan instead of the Blue Oval plant literally right down the road from them, which led me to a lot of questions. Obviously,
well, it could, yeah.
Well,
it could lead you to a couple more questions. This plant was set up. You are correct. The KTP, the Kentucky Truck Plant, was going to receive their batteries from the Michigan plant. Which, if anybody's looking, the Michigan plant's hiring ERTs right now. They're modeling off of us, but our plant was set up for the F-150 Lightning product line that inevitably got canceled. I think our batteries could also support the E-Mustang and the E-Transit, but mostly ours was going to be for the Lightning.
Okay. And so...
and I think they were manufacturing those out at Battery City down in Tennessee.
So when they announced the layoff, was there any kind of pre-warning before everybody lost their job, or was it literally out of the blue? Was there a lot of grumbling? How'd that play out?
We were in production. Of course, we had shut down building 2 construction and all that. We were in production. We started production August 19th, I want to say it was. And we were only in production for like 4 months when we started hearing the writing on the wall that, hey, everybody's going to get laid off. And then in December is when every Blue Oval employee, ourselves included, received the what we call the Merry Christmas letter of
production started.
About 4 was when we got the letter, but I would say between 2 and 3 months, we started hearing some writing on the wall. Because I think even at that time, Project N had fell apart and Nissan plan had fallen apart and everything.
So, based on what you said, they were manufacturing batteries and then just having to store them. So they weren't getting moved out.
That's how I survived the mass layoff.
What's it until the so they were just manufacturing batteries, putting them into a shack or a storage building, right? Not
in building 1. They were stored in building 1.
Stored in building 1. If you had to guess, how many batteries that were manufactured actually got moved out of the factory? Is it a majority of them? Half of them? Was it a pretty good rotation, or were they literally making batteries for nothing?
So we got our firing letter in December. They gave us 60 days. Technically, we all got fired on Valentine's Day, February 14th. That's everybody with Blue Oval. We survived the mass layoff as the ERT because, again, they were contractually obligated because I think of all that loan and everything that you know more about than I do. We had to make so much product. Well, they had the product, they had nothing to do with it, so they had to store it. Unfortunately, because of some of its volatile nature, it necessitated the need for the ERT team. And that's how we honestly survived the layoff. And that's when, again, we were putting up FLIR cameras, thermal imagers, all kinds of stuff, doing walks hourly, quarterly, all kinds of stuff at that place.
So if you had to guess, what percentage of manufactured batteries actually got
stored or
moved out?
I don't know the percentage. I know on site that we were storing was about 1 million between live cells and modules. And they're starting to move those out. They were slapping them all in crates that said ship to Hungary, which I just figured they're dumping those in the middle of the Atlantic right now.
Wait, okay, so a million. How many were they manufacturing a day?
That I do not know. It depended because the product line was always usually down for something. We didn't open all lines. We had the original plan was for 16 lines of product. I think we only ended up opening up 2 to 4 lines. So
they hired, was it 1,500, right?
we'll say 1,500. Yeah. I think it was more like 1,200, but yeah.
1,200.
I don't know. I don't work in HR.
Working every day, or were they rotating through? Did they hire way more people than they needed?
We never did no, they did end up doing a bit of a night shift. They had 3 shifts on at one time producing this stuff. For about 4 months, for about 3 months. No, we'll say 3 months, for about 3 months.
Okay.
And then it shifted over to skeleton crew. People are getting fired.
Okay. So the plant was open all 3 months before they're like, skeleton crew. They keep you on because they're storing all these things here. Were they moving out the batteries they were storing there, or were they literally just sitting there?
They were just sitting there. And well, they were decommissioning some products, some of the cells, not the modules that would go into a vehicle. But the actual cells that make up the module, we stored a lot of those for a long time, and they were trying to figure out how to decommission them, basically take them apart. And they couldn't find out a safe process, and that's how we almost ended up burning down the cell discharge outbuilding every other day, it seemed like.
So why do you think they would manufacture so many cells that they didn't need?
It's part of the deal. We have to. It's because we're still under that loan forgiveness thing. With that, even if Ford took it over, you had to make a certain amount of product in order to be eligible for that forgiveness.
Yeah. And now if you, I think it was employee count was the forgiveness, but it falls in line. I mean, your employees have to be doing something. So of course they're going to be manufacturing nothing. Yeah. So they announced they're going to shift over to, I believe, data center battery manufacturing, correct?
It's battery energy storage systems. So think of a big Connex box, a C crate. Think of something like that, but it's got all the like generator, electronics, and everything in it. So they're going to bring those in. We're going to make the big batteries that'll go inside of that, so we can. I still say we, but so they can ship it to a customer on down the line. It's going to store the energy. So you put it next to your generator. You'd put them at your data centers, stuff like that. Yeah.
What do you think the market is for that? You think they're gonna?
I think it's more sustainable.
People employed there. Do you think it happens in 18 months? They said 18 months they'd be shut down. You think they'll be retooled, ready to go in that amount of time?
They have a customer already lined up who's expecting a product delivery. It's my understanding they're expecting a product delivery in October of next year.
Okay.
So they've really ramped up in the last several weeks of bringing the contractors on site to redo that place. I know they've been ripping up concrete like crazy and all kinds of stuff because they have to redo some of the floors in the area because of the bigger, heavier machinery or process equipment that they have to bring in there.
Do you think any of this has to do, you hit upon it earlier about the union thing, and for the listeners that don't understand, and I can explain this real quick for them, the big electric vehicle, manufacturers that everybody thinks of is people like Tesla, and obviously Toyota's had some success there too as well. The big thing, the difference between Tesla and Toyota is they make, Tesla's making a 20% gross on the manufactured vehicle. It coming down the line 20%ish, 25%ish gross. Meanwhile, Ford on traditional combustion engine vehicles in a union controlled plant are seeing more like 5%. And the concern for Ford and anybody trying to get into the electric vehicle plan is if you bring on the unions, that added expense means you can no longer compete with people like Tesla. And as such, and what Tesla can afford to do is chop 15% off their price and just price you out of the market just like that. Nobody wants to buy what you're selling anyways, because it's so much more expensive than everything else. And do you think any of the shutdown and transition is being pushed forward by the fear of seeing the union coming into that plant? Because, if you shift over to data center or power generation systems, whatever you're talking about, you don't have to worry about the UAW coming in because you're not doing anything with automobiles anymore. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
No, I think the union is probably going to be inevitable there. The workforce wanted it last time. Of course, Blue Oval used the ERT team wrongly against that. But I think the union will be inevitable there because people want it. And honestly, they did us dirty. And I maybe going for the union is the best thing for that site. Maybe it'll help protect the people there now, protect those however many jobs they're bringing. And I say that as a person that doesn't like the union.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, when companies do those kinds of things, it definitely does lead to these concerns. What do you think the chances are the people that are laid off actually get offered a job back at the new plant first? Do you think, are they the kind of company you feel like will follow through with that?
They are. The rumor has it is that anybody who worked there before with Blue Oval would always get the first option. How true is that? I couldn't tell you. I don't know, because Ford seems to be coming in and taking over. They're slapping it down, saying we're in charge now. They seem to be getting rid of some good people for no good reason. And so I don't know. I hope they will. I sincerely hope they do, because all those people deserve a job there. And again, the site, I do feel the site will bounce back. The plant will take off and be okay, I believe.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, as you talked about some of the environmental concerns, though, it would have been, I think, nice for the community there to have had that discussion before.
It would, yeah. Again, Glendale never wanted us there. I don't think a lot of Hardin County wanted us there.
Is there any concern about toxic runoff? I mean, obviously you're talking about the chemicals they're using and everything else. What do they do to dispose of those chemicals? What are they doing? Obviously that creates byproducts and all kinds of other things. How do you dispose of that stuff?
A lot of the product we had on site is no longer on site because they'll have to change out the chemical layout. The batteries we made were known as NCM batteries, nickel, cobalt, manganese batteries. So it's kind of an older technology. So now that they're coming in, they're going to make, I think they're going to make these. It'll be LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate batteries, which is a newer technology, better, more safer and more stable chemicals and things of that nature that they'll be running in their system.
So how do they dispose of them, the chemicals?
But to dispose of it, they have a hazmat laydown yard there. So a lot of stuff we had to dispose of was carted off site. Obviously it has to follow environmental regulations and things of that nature, hazmat laws. So drumming it up, labeling it and all that things and getting it off site. I think the maximum for like some of the chemicals was it was allowed to be on site for 90 days in that condition before it had to be off site. But yeah, it was all carried out accordingly. And now their storage, there was a little runoff and everything, but there's secondary containments and drainage systems that catches all that.
Okay. So when it comes to, I guess you're kind of speaking out now because and you reached out to me because they just kind of out of the blue let you go. Have other members of the emergency response team been let go too as well? Are they kind of trying to trim back even more people? What's going on with this?
I know that this did not come down from my bosses that I interact with on a daily basis. It's come down from Ford Physical Security, I was fired by. Fired so fast they couldn't even collect my access badge and lanyard. I've still got it. But they fired several good members. I know they fired a retired Elizabethtown firefighter who was on his way out to retirement. This was his retirement gig. This was supposed to be my retirement gig. They fired a paramedic who was on our staff. They fired a couple good people.
Was there good reasons for this, or were they laying them off saying, hey, we just don't really need you? Or is what is the dynamic going on that's leading to them just kind of getting rid of people?
Well, right now we were independent contractors. When Blue Oval left the site, we were kind of left homeless. So we had a company pick us up as independent contractors, and Ford Energy was going to pick us up. I kept hearing fourth quarter of this year, but I believe it was probably more likely first quarter of next year when they would do that. So literally when I got my phone call, I was driving down the road going to a meeting, and it was my bosses at this contractor company that said, hey, Ford Energy called and said your services are no longer required and your contract's terminated. And when I asked why, they couldn't give me a reason. I made a few phone calls. I know some friends in low places that got me the reason why, but
and got you the reason why, but they couldn't tell you right away. Interesting. Well, kind of as we're wrapping up here, what do you think? I mean, if you have to talk to the Kentuckians listening to this, obviously it's their tax dollars at play, good and bad. What are the things they should be looking out for? What are the things you want them to know? What are the possible upside? Just what do you want to get across to them?
I want to know, for the people of Kentucky, I want them to know that the site will bounce back. It was a hard time. I know a lot of people are mad at the site. I'm kind of mad about it myself as a taxpayer, speaking as a taxpayer in the area, because I had to pay Hardin County taxes as well on my paycheck. The site will bounce back. It's just going to take a little time. Now, as far as who's gotten any money off this deal or kickbacks off this deal, well, you can do a FOIA request on that. And I highly encourage people to do that.
Do you think Bashir should have renegotiated their $250 million forgiveness loan or kept them to the original timeline?
They forgave it and extended it. So now I believe they have until 2028 is what they've extended it to.
Do you think they should have done it?
Well, that I don't know. I don't get into that high a level of things. I just find it funny that, a lot of people that let that plant fail are still in charge there.
Why do you think the Michigan plant is still in and then this plant isn't? Michigan plant's still manufacturing batteries, but this plant isn't.
They were set up for a separate reason. They're going to work more with KT or Kentucky Truck Plant. So they were working on a different product line, I believe.
Yeah. Once again, it's interesting that the Kentucky.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. Instead of keeping it there in Kentucky with that, I would love to know the answers.
Because we were twinned with the Tennessee plant that they ended up, I think, giving away to Blue Oval. Just saying, here, have this. That's yours now. We want nothing to do with it. Or SK or whoever. Yeah, I don't think that's anything to do with Ford.
What's going on currently at the site?
What's going on currently? So they're currently retooling and redoing a lot of the buildings, or at least building one. They finally built us a fire station, so our emergency equipment stored in a building now. Like I said, they're ripping up floors. They're ripping up a lot of concrete because of the bigger, heavier process machinery that they're bringing in. So all that old process machinery that the Koreans brought over, they yanked it out, and it's sitting in a scrap pile, getting ready to go to scrap. So that's your taxpayer dollars too. I hope everybody understands that. Bringing in the new machinery with the reinforced floor. They're going to redo a lot of the layout of the building, I feel. So Kentucky 2 is still just a shell of a building. That's the way it's been from the start, basically. I literally watched them put up the last walls on that thing. It's got
I've heard
all of
conversation about making that a data center. Have you heard that?
I don't think that's a thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of rumor. The big rumor was that at one time they were going to move the Kentucky truck plant down there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to, I don't think so. I think that they'll end up making a battery on that site. That building's laid out for making batteries. They could, but I don't know why they would. But it's full of mold. That's the one that I'm like, that's where the mold's at. You know how when you go to like Mammoth Cave or anything and you're walking through and you see like stalactites and stalagmites, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I've seen literal stalagmites standing up in that building of just mold and nasty growing in building 2 from where it's just been left rot for 2 years now. No concrete floors in there. It's all dirt.
I mean, the taxpayers built that building
to
the tune of, $1 billion. And it's just rotting there with
you go anywhere near that. You go anywhere near that building and you're like, oh yeah.
Spikes of mold coming up from the ground.
Yeah, all the HVAC equipment and air handling units are already stored in there. We're just ready to be put in and people to come in there and start working, and everything just went to a halt. Yep. And so in the wintertime, they pump it full of warm air. In the summer, people leave, well, even in the winter, they leave doors open. There was usually a constant fog or a little haze in that building. And I always made the joke, you could probably grow some good mushrooms in there. That's how nasty it is in that building.
Wow. Is there any, so for you guys on the emergency response team, was there anything over there that you had special concerns about that you all had to have a safety plan for?
Everything has a safety plan. All of our emergency response was supposed to have a safety plan. Mind you, a lot of our SOPs, don't even get me started on that. We were doing a lot of things in a gray area and still kind of are as an ERT team. But
what do you mean
yeah, everything.
Gray?
Oh, well, like
how you're going to respond to something, or more like we're not even sure if this plan would work.
Not so much that, was one, we are just, our SOPs were out of place. They never really got fully implemented. I feel like those are lacking for the ERT team. They took safety out of our job title. So we're not so much concerned about like going around spotting safety deficiencies or anything like that anymore. They have their own safety on site.
Why do you think they did that?
Because Ford doesn't even really understand what an ERT does. I mean, we're kind of a luxury to have an ERT team to our level on site that's able to do that level of response and take care of things versus just your normal line member who knows CPR and first aid and how to grab a fire extinguisher. Gotcha. Us will deploy hose lines. We got fire trucks, but our SOPs are a little lacking right now. We're in a gray zone because of our liability and workers' comp insurance. We have to pick that up on ourselves personally. And it's kind of expensive for a lot of people. I'm thinking upwards of $2,000 a month just for our liability insurance.
You're paying for your own workers' comp?
Yeah.
But you're a contractor with them, correct?
Yeah, we're independent contractors.
But
now Blue Oval and all that
company.
Yeah. So we have to personally pay
workers' comp.
No. So we have to personally pay our liability insurance. Some people are paying exorbitant amounts, and some of us just flat out lied on it. So we only got to pay $80 a month.
And they didn't require a copy of that workers' comp insurance. They didn't require like a copy of the workers' comp insurance. Or anything?
Yeah, we had to send it into our company so they knew we had workers' comp insurance.
And you guys had to pay for that personally, huh?
Yeah, we're still doing that. I actually just got mine canceled. I had to call them and get it canceled.
That is surprising because you have like set shifts, don't you?
Yeah, there are 4 different shifts. They're A, B, C, and D shift, and each shift works 12-hour rotation.
Who schedules you?
We just kind of set a schedule at the start when we first went to the shift work, and it's just been in place ever since.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting just because based upon what
we were doing a lot of things, like even our medical response we were doing on site. I had some concerns with that because we were transporting people without medical direction.
What do
you have to have a doctor? You have to have a doctor who's licensed or a physician whose license you work under to handle your scope of practice. We never had that on site. Basically, we were operating as good Samaritans. They got an ambulance on site. I don't know if K-Beams knows about that or not, or has inspected that. K-Beams being the Kentucky Board of Emergency Medical Services.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it does sound like a gray area of operation out there.
It's a gray area. I mean, right now, people are afraid to do anything. The standing order is if something happens there, God forbid, a thermal event, start calling the supervisors because they're the ones that actually work for Ford. Let them come in and deal with it.
But they're not trained like you all.
No, they're trained. Yeah, they're trained. Yeah, they're trained. But, the closest one's 2 minutes away. The other closest one's probably 15, 20 minutes away. Meanwhile, the building's on fire.
Yeah, that's, shocking there. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for joining us, informing citizens on what's going on out there when it comes to their tax dollars. I appreciate it.
Hey, they have a right to know, myself being a taxpayer as well. Andrew, I want to say thank you for having me on and let me speak my piece about the place. I can still do a lot more talking about it and Toyota and a lot of other things. But again, I want to thank you for having me on. And I want to put a caveat out there, if I might, real quick.
Sure.
I hope, because I've spoke out about this, I'm sure Ford's going to send me a cease and desist. But Yeah, I don't want any repercussions to come down on the ERT team or anything on this, or anybody that works there still. It's a good site. It's going to bounce back, and the ERT team there is trying to do the right thing.
Well, Thomas, I know I appreciate you coming on and obviously taking the risk. Thank you so much.
Hey, Andrew, appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, and God bless you, sir.
I want to thank once again Thomas Walling for coming out. I mean, truthfully, obviously there's risk here of reprisal. There's risk of going after, but when he reached out to me, he said, look, there's a lot of weird things going on over there. There are a lot of things of concern that I think the public deserves to know. And so he reached out and I said, yeah, come on in. Let's learn some things. Obviously, I'm just the outsider looking in. I look at the financials and taxpayer dollars going into it. But on the inside, looking at how it works, this is something of interest to all taxpayers, not just here in Kentucky, but across the nation, as once again, hundreds of millions out of Kentucky's taxpayer coffers, billions of dollars out of the federal government went into these buildings, went into this site. And you should know how your money's being spent. And I want to thank Thomas once again for giving us the information. I hope you guys make sure, once again, like, comment, share, subscribe, leave a 5-star review there if you're listening on a podcast platform. But, that's what we got time for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next week.